Hi, everybody. Celia Waterhouse here. Today we have Lisa Dion. Now, Lisa Dion is the founder and the president of the Synergetic Play Therapy Institute, and she's also the creator of the Synergetic Play Therapy. Now, Lisa has authored a book titled Aggression in Play Therapy, a Neurobiological Approach for Integrating Intensity. And she's also the host of Lessons from the Playroom podcast. Welcome, Lisa.
Thanks for having me, Celia.
Oh my gosh, it's always a pleasure having you. Lots to talk about all the time.
Yes.
But today I only have the one question for you. So if you were to share one piece of advice with your clients on how to help them manage their emotions in this divisive world, what would it be?
First of all, I love this question so much because I think it's the most relevant question that we all need to be asking ourselves and helping others find their own answers for right now. And my answer is really the same. It doesn't matter whether I'm working with a client or I'm teaching or even with myself, and it is orienting back inward. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. When we get scared, Celia, so for example, right now there's a lot going on, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of opinions going on. And one of the very first things that happens to us is we lose ourselves because we start orienting outside of ourselves towards people and opinions around us. On a deeper level, what we're trying to do is look for safety. So we try to look for safety outside of us. The problem, however, is that everything happening outside of us right now is a moving target. Nothing's predictable, nothing's stable. So to be able to find safety outside of ourselves is not really effective. Yet it's the default of how the brain tends to operate. So really what we're having to do right now is to look for safety within, is to be able to take a deep breath, to really look at how much are we relying on other people, the news, governments, whoever, whatever, to give us a sense of safety versus creating an internal safety inside. So the question might be, what does that look like? Or, how do we do that? Because it is more than just taking a deep breath, although that is a really good place to start. But a deeper part of that is recognizing that it's important for us to develop a relationship with ourselves, particularly around the different emotions that are coming up. And since that's part of what your question was about, how do we deal with the emotions? If I'm spending a lot of time avoiding them, if I'm spending a lot of time trying to make them better, if I'm trying to shift them, change them, it actually intensifies the emotional experience. That's different than learning how to be with the emotion, which is different than becoming consumed by the emotion. So as an example, let's say that I'm having a moment where I'm feeling a lot of anxiety. Can I pause? Can I take a deep breath? Can I acknowledge that I'm feeling anxious? And then can I do something within myself to connect to myself in the anxiety? So for example, it might be like holding on to myself. Okay, so notice this is an act of me creating safety within me. I'm not looking outside. I'm finding safety within while I'm experiencing anxiety. Or it may be putting one hand on my heart and maybe another one where I'm literally holding myself and taking a deep breath. It may be something that's not quite as static. It might be something like take a walk. And as I'm taking a walk, feel my body. It may be go take a cold shower and just let the experience of the cold water, fall on my head and just get into my body because of the sensation of the cold water in my body. It may be getting a glass of water or something yummy to eat or drink. And again, having that experience of nurturing myself. It may be listening to my favorite song, but feeling the song, not just listening to it, but actually feeling the song. These are all ways that we begin to orient this way instead of orienting that way. And that's really the key piece here is for people to really look at how much do I rely on other people or how much do I rely on outside information to help me feel safe? versus me empowering myself to have a relationship with myself in any given moment and creating my own sense of safety for myself within. The people that are able to do that more effectively are not the ones that are going to get lost out here with all the divisiveness, because it's really hard to be divided when you're here. When I know who I am, when I'm connected to myself, when I breathe into my center, this ever fluctuating, changing world doesn't get me off course. If I'm disconnected from myself, I'm going to be moved back and forth, and I'm going to be at the whims of all the divisiveness that's going on outside. So we got to come back here. We gotta learn how to establish an internal sense of safety.
I love that whole visualization of, coming within to prevent the divide. Okay, so here's a question, because you're a parenting expert amongst other areas of expertise that you teach in. So with regards to our children and keeping them centered and not, taking in the chaos that's going on the outside world, how do you help parents help their children maintain kind of an emotional equilibrium?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first thing really comes back to what I just said about creating safety internally versus externally. And I'm saying that first for the parents, because when our children get on their emotional roller coaster, one of the very first things that parents usually try to do is, I'm going to do something to my child so that I feel safe inside. I'm going to try to get my kid to stop so that I don't have to feel what's going on in here. Okay. I'm going to propose that we have to go a different way. This is not about doing something to the child. The first thing that we have to do is what I'm talking about. As my child is doing their fluctuation, I first need to orient here and create a sense of safety here. That's step one before I ever can intervene with my child. I need to get here first. Once I'm here, now I can begin to become what I love to call, in the work that I do, the external regulator, which basically means I am able to help regulate or modulate the intensity that's going on for the child, because children are in the process of learning how to do this. So they don't know how to do this well. So they actually need someone to externally almost help organize their internal chaos for them, so they learn what it feels like to do that for themselves. But if I'm so disorganized, I can't go and help organize someone else's internal world. So that's why here first, and then with the child. Now, practically speaking, it can be some of the exact same things that we would do to create a sense of safety within. So maybe I am noticing that my child is really, hyper, really anxious, not settling well, a lot of fidgety energy, very impulsive. How do I help the energy move? Do we need to go on more walks? Do we need to do a dance party in the living room? Do we need to play a game where we're kind of wrestling, a little bit, or we're having competitions where we're like pushing on a wall or we're pushing on the floor? Do I need to actually go lay on top of my child and physically ground my child with my body? These are all ways of helping integrate what's going on, within the child. The other thing that's happening in these moments, which is really cool, is that our children in these moments are actually borrowing our nervous system, which you and I have talked about before.
I love that phrase.
So it just goes back to what we were saying before. I have got to orient and create safety within me. Otherwise, from the child's perspective, I'm the one that's all over the place. So if I'm all over the place and the child still hasn't learned how to do this very well, meaning connect to themselves very well, then they're going to be at the whim of my ever-changing fluctuations and highs and lows, which is different than how can I give my child a felt sense experience of what it means to connect, to take a deep breath, Maybe it means sitting quietly with them in a room and reading a book. Maybe it means dimming the lights. Maybe it means encouraging them to take a bath and to actually feel their body and feel the water, surrounded in the bath. Maybe it's those kinds of things. But what I'm doing is I'm teaching the child how to orient in, so that, again, when they are then bombarded by the messages or things that they're hearing from their friends or whatever, they know what it feels like.
Right.
So in some ways, we're creating a template for the child so they know what it feels like to come back. They know what it feels like to create an internal sense of safety, but that has to start with us. We've got to model that, and then we have to provide that template for our child and not expect that somehow they just automatically know how to do that, because they don't. That's a learned response.
I love that piece of advice, and I was hoping you would share that because if anyone wants to listen to Lisa's longer interview in the OnPoint Mentors Ask a Mentor group, I highly encourage you, because she goes more in depth into these concepts. But this is not the last time we're going to have you on. We're going to have you talking about more parenting issues as well as other issues that you are an expert in as well. So Lisa, so thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And until our next interview.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.